Hello everyone, my name is Ria Anggraini and I would like to present about language change material in meeting aid. Language change is variation over time in a language features. This change occurs in pronunciation, meaning, and vocabulary. In this material, I will discuss some information that includes in the language change material. Language varies in many ways. First, language varies in physical space. Depending on the mannerism of the culture and ethnicity, traditions, and communication skills, psychical space varies through cultures. The personal boundaries of every individual are used psychologically as a way to protect ourselves or to communicate in depth. In some countries, people do not have a problem getting closer to talk to one another. In other cultures, space is a key, and the more separate one is from the other, the more comfortably the conversation goes. The second one, language varies in social context. Social circles like to identify themselves and separate themselves one from the other. You get this a lot with people, for example, who want to appear be overeducated since they may want to belong to an upper class of socio-economic nature, and for this reason they alter their intonations, vocabulary, and inflections to make themselves sound smarter or more sophisticated. Hence, people may want to adopt a certain manner of speech to represent a certain social strata and identify other members of such. In less educated social strata, this form of sophisticated language, excessively complicated vocabulary, and elegant mannerisms may not have a place to flourish. Hence, members of that group also maintain the same manner of language usage. Next, language varies in time. When people live in a certain region over a period of time, the regional mannerisms that are shared by a group are brushed upon each other. Although that doesn't mean that the native language will be extinguished. It certainly will blend in with the language spoken by the majority. Also, certain losses might occur over time after not speaking your own native language. You may certainly lose most of the monitor language, such as the grammatically and mechanically correct of the language. But the language corpus will remain intact unless there is no use of the native language at all. How do language change spread? Language change can spread from group to group. This view of language change is that change in a language move from one group. A group can be any sort of social or work circle. Examples can include family, co-workers, etc. The change of language in a group is often facilitated by gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are people who are members of different groups. Most people are members of many different groups at the same times. What happens in that a person picks up language in one group and shares this style of communication in another. An example would be a child learning slang at school and using it at home. Naturally, language change moves at different speeds in different groups depends on the acceptability of the change. Next, language change can also spread from style to style. A style is a way of communicating. In simple terms, a person's style can be formal and informal. Normally, formal styles of language move down into informal styles of language. For example, a movie star or some other celebrity speaks a certain way and thus style is transferred downward. Among those who are not so famous, there are times where formal and informal language change spreads upward. Normally, this is much slower than change moving downward. For example, the word cool used to be slang, but is commonly used among some of the most elite leaders of the world now. Therefore, it wasn't the language that changed as much as the people who use it, with the passing of one generation to another. Last, language change can spread from word to word. Sound change can also spread from one word to another. It spreads through different words one by one. This is called lexical diffusion. When a sound change begins, all words with the same sound change one by one, not in the same time. In New Zealand, a vowel change, which is currently in progress, merged vowels of words beer and beer, which were distinct. The distinction between rarely and really has already disappeared. So, what are the reasons behind language change? First, the language background changed because of social status. There is still a great deal of research and discussion about which social group introduced language change. One answer seems to be that a language change may enter a speech community through social group, but that different types of change are associated with different groups. And the second, because of gender. Differences in women's and men's speech are another source of variation, which can result in language change. Sometimes women are the innovators, leading a language change, and sometimes men too. Women tend to be associated change towards both prestige and vernacular forms, whereas men more often introduce vernacular change. Last, the reason for language change is because of interactions. Language change progresses more slowly in tightly knit communities which have little contact with the outside world. Then, how do we study language change? In apparent time studies, there are two ways. First, we can comparing the speech of people of different age, such as younger speaker use more of the newer forms. The second one, we can look at the frequency of the increase and decrease of a form by age group. Otherwise, in real-time studies, there are three ways. First, observing the change that occur over a period of time. Second, known as real-time studies. This is a very reliable method. And last, consider the social factors affecting the language use. So, I think enough. Thank you for listening. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. See you.